Hello, it's me, Kyle, making my first video in a little bit too long. But you see, I was working on a project that I know all of you are going to appreciate. I put my effort and my time into a book. That's right, God has gifted me with a book that I believe is going to be a blessing and going to be a premonition. That's not the right word, but I think it's going to be a dominant driving force, a force of love for people to gather around and to cling to a form of love, a form of hope, and really reinvest themselves in the actual Christian spirit that it's supposed to be the the mood of our movement. I really wish I had the right words right now, but I'm very tired. But I want to make this video and I want to get it out there. So I'm just making it. So I'm not entirely well spoken. I'm not entirely uh, dressed like I want to be dressed. I'm not well groomed. I'm not, uh, some ingenious scholar in a suit in his own personal library or anything like that. But I'm well-meaning. I, you know, care very much about this book and what it's trying to talk to people about and tell people and tell the story it's trying to tell. So I really hope that you can enjoy it as well and that you'll take the time to look at it and you'll take the time to watch this video and maybe go read a portion of it yourself. The book has available like 4 of the chapters, the first chapters. There's 25 chapters in the whole book. The first four chapters are available. Um, and if you the book is available on Kindle for $9.99 as an ebook. Also, if you have Kindle Unlimited, it's available to read for free. And then if you want a paperback copy, it's $19.99 and you have to order it from Amazon. But the book's all out now. It's called Older Than Eternity. That's OLDER, older than THAN, eternity, ETERNITY. So it's part of the New Earth series. Um, it's the first book, so there's going to be a few more. I'm excited about it. I hope you guys really enjoy it. Uh, the book's available if you purchase it digitally. You can share it with friends who also have Kindle e-readers, and they can read the book for up to 14 days before it becomes unavailable. But the actual sample size is so big that I really think you can get a good idea of the book. But I do have to say that once you actually get into like the beginning, middle section of the book, it really sucks you in. But the first few chapters are really good too. I personally think. So I hope you guys will enjoy it. Here's a portion of the book right now. I'm actually going to go ahead and read it to you. So I'll let Kyle reading the book take over. Older Than Eternity, first of the New Earth series, by Kyle Walker. Copyright 2021 Kyle Vance Walker. Dedication. Alright, here's a quote. To read the living word is only a half measure. True enactment of God's will is found when sharing it with others, using His word in your everyday life, or combating forces beyond your control with its power. God did not say, "Here, take this book, put it in a basement, read it only in secret, and let it never feel the touch of daylight." No. Jesus said to share the good news, to go out and make every man, woman, and child aware of God. Make them aware of His sacrifice, of the promise awaiting them. So do not live in half measures, using half-hearted words and doing half-hearted things. Instead, live fully, with a full heart rooted in God. That's the only way to live. I am. Here's the title, contents, table of contents. Okay. Chapter 1, in the beginning. It was a small, barren patch of earth. Long, lush grassland met rich, dark silt as dry land gave way to a river who had made its bed there. Crossing over the waters as easily as he did over land, a man came to stand upon this small, barren patch of earth. A smile easily graced his features as he crouched down and gathered dirt in his hands. Good. This is very good. Slowly, the man began building with the dirt. Using water he gathered from the river, as well as clay from the river bank. The work continued at an even pace, tediously moving between the river and the patch of land. Carefully, the man molded his creation with a loving, firm hand. The sun seemed to pause, as though the spinning of the earth had stopped, as though the planets were stuck in a great spider's web. Yet time was indeed passing. Still the daylight did not fade, as the Creator molded his masterpiece. Ah, yes. It is done. Straightening so that he was at his full height once more, the Creator looked down at his creation. If possible, his smile seemed to widen even more, threatening to split his face in two. Hello, my dear one. His head rested an even 3 feet above his creations. Dirt had never become closer to the sight of human flesh than that moment. The detail that was placed into this man's creation was astounding. If looked at closely enough, every pore could be seen, every hair follicle, every crease of skin or wrinkle. Once more, the Creator knelt in front of his creation, bringing his eyes level with the dirt man's. He breathed in a deep breath, pulling the breath down into his very energy, into his soul, and finally exhaled. At the contact of his breath, the dirt shifted. It began to peel from the man, as though his flesh had been simply coated with grime instead of molded from it. Pale flesh, flushed and without blemish, was revealed. Hair white as snow blown back in wavy, shoulder-length tresses. Unconsciously, the creation stumbled back from the force of the gust of air breathed upon him, his eyes opening briefly before shutting again. The pale man hissed from his eyes' first contact with sunlight. Making a noise of comprehension, the Creator snapped his fingers, allowing the sun to resume its normal course as it began to set behind the trees. It is all right now. Open your eyes, friend. The sunlight cannot hurt you. Cautiously, the pale man opened his eyes, revealing irises the color of molten gold, though they began to shift to the color of amber in the fading light. Ah, yes. Your eyes closely reflect my own, though maybe they are a tad lighter, the color of grain which sprouts from the very same dirt that you were created. You shall be called Adama, for you came from the earth, a fitting name for my companion. The pale man, now named Adama by his Creator, turned abruptly at the larger man's proclamation. He stood, studying the vibrant landscape, before turning his curious eyes to study the man before him. Adama, this is what I am called. A white brow rose in supplication. The Creator smiled, his eyes filled with an uncomprehending joy. Reaching forward, he clasped Adam's shoulder in his hand, steadying him, anchoring him in that moment. A feeling of peace and joy filled the man, allowing him to calm down and settle his mind. Yes, Omain, this is your name. Adam nodded, allowing this bit of knowledge to sink into his mind before raising his eyes again to look at his Creator. And what is it that I should call you? What is your name? Smiling, the Creator glanced up and to the right, scratching his chin as he furrowed his eyebrows, as if thinking about his own name was causing him consternation. Finally, with a sigh, the Creator turned back to Adam. To be honest, I have many names. Some of them you may not be able to comprehend. Letting go of Adam's shoulder, the larger man stood once again to his full height and placed his fists against his hips. For now, You may call me Jehovah Shammah, for I am presently in your company." And the two men spoke for hours, Adam mainly driving the conversation as he asked his creator every and any question. This conversation continued into the dawn of the next day, and as the sun rose over the horizon and shone upon mankind's first day, Adam sighed happily from his place perched in the tree. "It is good, Elohim." The Creator stretched out his arm, placing his hand upon the shoulder of his good companion, and smiled. "Indeed, it is good." Chapter 2. Awaken. "Awaken, my dear boy. You have slept long. Sleep no more. Come, those who seek me, find me." Lashes fluttered furiously before they flickered out of sight as the man's eyes opened suddenly. For a moment everything seemed surreal. He was laying on his back. This was the only thing that he was certain of. Everything else was mysterious. The sky was a deep indigo. Multiple patterns and swirls of varying shades of blue seemed to sweep through the heavens, as though the sky itself was a quilt or tapestry made to hold designs. It was day, and yet the stars were clearly visible past the barrier that was the sky. Sparse, billowing clouds lazily drifted by. Moving slightly brought a deep groan from the bowels of the man's chest. It rattled his bones and shook loose the phlegm and dirt that seemed to cake his throat. This caused him to begin coughing violently. He swiftly turned to his side, allowing a dark, unnatural ooze to splatter upon the lush blue grass beneath him. After a few tense moments of him continuing to cough up what he had deduced to be mud, he finally was allowed a respite as the coughing ceased, allowing him to finally breathe easily. Pushing himself into a sitting position slowly, the man came face to face with a sight that nearly caused him to faint once more with its miraculous nature. It was simply phantasmagorical. Directly in front of him, maybe a few meters away, was an enormous wall made of pure gold. The wall must have stretched nearly 12,000 furlongs into the air. It was a marvel to the man that it hadn't pierced the sky. Bracing the wall were 4 large pillars spanning its immense height, 2 pillars placed at the corners, and 2 pillars placed closer to the wall's center. At the base of the wall were 3 immense circular gates. The pillars were formed from a hodgepodge of precious metals and stone, while the circular gates appeared to be made from carved marble or maybe pearl. They seemed to emit a glow, shining iridescently in the distance. Grunting at the effort, the man pushed himself shakily to his feet, holding his arms out to steady himself. Looking around, he saw that the landscape consisted of a field of blue-green grass that shimmered with early morning dew. Swirling patterns of underbrush and flowers dotted the landscape as the field continued out until it met a coppice, where the trees stood tall and imposing. Their leaves were a dark rich green, and their trunks bore bark that were colored a russet hue, reminding him of a sunset. Turning to face what lay at his back, the confused man came face to face with the cliffside. His heart dropped unceremoniously into his stomach as he took the short 6 or 7 steps to the edge of said cliff. It was a sheer drop, hundreds of feet down to what looked like sand and sharp rocks. Once again glancing toward the direction of the forest, the man observed that this cliff face continued until it reached the horizon, disappearing out of sight. "Stop! Move not a muscle." A voice erupted from the previously deafening silence, loud and commanding, its timbre like a trumpet. Finally, comprehension dawned on the man, and he glanced up, his heart once again nearly stopping as he witnessed the flying being descending toward him at a high speed. With a grace belied by his large size, the angel landed with little to no sound, his wings spreading out to balance himself upon landing. He stood a half a foot taller than the man, his wingspan having to be 20 feet at least. The angel's wings were a combination of gold and white feathers. They sparkled in the light, feathers detaching themselves and floating softly to the ground as a result of his quick landing. What are you doing outside of New Jerusalem's gates? None of the eastern wall gates have been opened today, and no plans were made with the city ordinance for an excursion into the countryside. Explain yourself. What are you doing out here? The only word that could describe him was breathless. Less than 5 minutes ago, he had awoken to find himself beneath a sky he could not recognize, witnessing things he couldn't fathom. Now he finds himself speaking with an angel. I do not know where I am. I do not know the name of that massive city until you told me. It was not my intent to disobey your rules. I'm sorry. Speaking out loud for the first time allowed a weight to lift from the man's shoulders, acknowledging his ignorance and seeking help from another being supremely helpful in the startling scenario he found himself. Unfortunately, the same could not be said for the angel. The creature's face took on a bewildered expression. Reaching up with his hand, he cupped his own ear, shaking his head a few times before blinking rapidly. I'm sorry, could you repeat yourself? The man furrowed his brow, thinking maybe his voice was too quiet, or perhaps too raspy from a lack of use. Taking a breath, he spoke again more loudly, his voice cracking and snapping like twigs in a fire. I said that I am clueless to how I ended up outside this city. New Jerusalem, I think you called it. I only just awoke here, covered in dirt. I do not know where I am. I do not know who I am. Concurrent with his final words, a splitting headache flooded the man's head. The ache began at the base of his skull and rushed forward through his head, finally settling behind his eyes. A muffled voice attempted to pierce the ringing which had filled the man's ears. The angel touched his shoulder, softly shaking him as he raised his voice, obviously trying to make himself heard above the din of noise echoing within his own mind. Soon the pain became unbearable for the man, and he lost consciousness once more. Sight and sound returned in random bursts as he wavered between consciousness and unconsciousness, shifting abruptly between darkness and flashes of light and sound. He was in the air. Strong limbs stiff as wire kept him still and secure as he flew above. A waterfall whose water rushed upward toward the heavens. Or maybe it simply followed below him. Buildings formed from the purest white gold, blown into shapes as if made from glass. They cast no shadows. No darkness existed at any corner of this vast metropolis. The water was crystal clear, bordered by gorgeous trees, tall and strong, as though they were carved from cinnabar. A short, squat building carved from the same pearl as the gateways into New Jerusalem. The faces of the angel and two strange, bearded men. One of the men immediately commanded his attention. Though he appeared young, with dark hair sprinkled with gray, his eyes were a dark emerald color, which held countless years in their depths. A marking graced his forehead. Somehow, he knew that the word spelled Elohim. Finally, the grasp of sleep won, and he saw no more. Chapter 3, New Jerusalem. There was no shaking, no bumps, jolts, or abrupt churns. The bullet train glided seamlessly, moving at speeds over 480 kilometers per hour. If taking a glance outside one of the windows on the moving train, no one would believe that you were traveling at such an immense speed. The outside world passed by as if you were taking a stroll. Light became liquid gold as it fanned through the boughs of the trees lining the riverside. Each tree was a myriad of color, each branch covered in lighter or darker bark, smoother or coarser. Each tree had 12 hanging fruits, different fruits. Not only that, but each tree was sectioned in a variety of seasons, whatever season made the ripest fruit to bear, whichever day or year should yield the most promising or delicious fruit. Each tree aged in varieties of 3. Some of the coniferous trees even held themselves in eternal winter so that they may bloom wild snowberries or fragrant mistletoe. Creatures of various species roamed the riverbank. Hippopotamus basked in the cool water and the warm light. Meanwhile, lions roamed the shore, munching fresh flowers and grass alongside great heifers chewing cud, or slumbering alongside wolves and wild dogs in the cool shade of the trees with larger branches. Zebra and horses who jerked and whinnied. They played with one another and made merry, basking in the joy of newfound fellowship. There were human beings also, man and woman standing side by side, enjoying a walk. The company of one of the animals nearby, taking and eating of the generous fruits bared solely for their pleasure. The area that the train was passing by was a residential area. Large sprawling mansions filled entire blocks, stretching from street corner to street corner. All the mansions were large enough to at least house 200 people, maybe more depending on the style of architecture, which varied greatly. Some of the mansions and buildings seemed to be completely modern, ranging from Victorian era to the year 2000, while other mansions looked as though they were crafted during the Peloponnesian War or during the reign of King Herod of Judea. This only described the sites which were in the immediate foreground. Farther back, in the distance, were buildings stretching high into the air. Some were so massive in stature that the spires of the tallest buildings on the city's bottom level were touching the top of the building stretching down from the city's upper level. Yet the most stunning feature in the immediate scenery was the train. Running along tracks made of seamless glass, made of the strongest, lightest metals, and decorated with ornaments of the finest gold and jewels. Everything was stunning and lit with the most all-encompassing, warmth-giving light, so luminous that no shadow could exist within the city walls. Seated at the end of the train car, which was suspiciously empty now, two men sat next to the intercar door, which led to the corridor connecting the first passenger car and the locomotive. How long has he been unconscious? Maybe only a few moments, or maybe a few days. I believe the best measure I can give to satisfy a human mind is distance. From the moment I flew through Benjamin's Gate on the eastern wall of the city, since that moment until now, he has been unconscious. The angel seemed worried, almost frustrated, if such an emotion was even possible within the city. The angel was tall, standing at 7 feet. His skin was pale, white like alabaster or the color of tin. His hair was a light golden blonde, and his eyes were pools of vermilion, similar to a rose. He wore dark gray trousers, a pair of sandals, and a white button-up shirt, specially made to allow angels' wings. Across from him was his companion, a human man of a smaller stature. His skin was a light brown, his hair a dark brown, the color of moist dirt. His brows were thick, and his eyes were slightly sunken. They were a teal color, like the blue-green of the sea, or like sea foam washed ashore. His nose was long and hooked and dominated his face. His mouth was slanted and raised at the right corner, as if ready to smirk or frown at a moment's notice. He had a long beard with unruly flyaway curls. Sighing, the man watched the angel once again run his right hand over the forehead of their unconscious companion, absently rubbing at the skin. He doesn't have the mark. We would be able to see it. The angel tutted in frustration, clicking his tongue against the back of his teeth. I know. Once again, both men felt their stares drift back to the possibly comatose stranger. Though his skin was caked with dirt and clay, it was obvious that the man's skin was extremely pale, as well as his hair, which was a lighter blonde than the heavenly host's. It's so strange. He's even paler than Noam. We must bring him before Yeshua. This train should take us to the capital without issue. He will be waiting us. It seems he knew this strange man was arriving today. I wonder then why he did not tell us to receive the man outside the gates. It was quite a frightening moment when I felt a human soul in distress. Take up your faith, Raphael. All will be revealed in time, and time is something neither of us lacks. The angel smiled at the olive-skinned man's words, uncharacteristically rolling his eyes in an exaggerated motion, causing his fellow traveler to laugh in amusement. It's it is not unusual. It is not usual of you to be so patient, Paulus. You are the one who is regularly seeking answers at Yeshua's side. Paulus snorted, amusement still the prominent emotion on his face, even as a hint of humility came to fruition in the form of a blush upon his cheeks. I suppose I must also remind myself to stay humble, especially in the face of your wisdom. Raphael burst into laughter, the sound blaring from his throat loudly. So loudly, in fact, that the previously sleeping man jolted awake, sitting up quickly from his previously prone position on the seat across from the two men. Almost immediately after being startled awake, the man took a moment to assess his surroundings, allowing his current predicament to sink in before turning his attention to the two men sitting before him. It was clear that while he recognized the angel seated before him, the dark-haired and bearded man beside him was a mystery. The man breathed deeply and cleared his throat with a rough cough, addressing the men before him in a voice rivaling the sound of a landslide. I have questions, many questions, but I shall settle for a few. Firstly, where am I now? Also, who are you? Wasn't that cool? That's what it looks like on if it's sideways on the Kindle, so the Kindle app. So that's the first. I didn't read all of it, I don't think, but that's the first three of the book up until New Jerusalem. Uh, so you guys should go check out the book if you want to read more of the sample or if you want to buy it. Like I said, it's $9.99. If you have unlimited, it's free. It's $19.99 for a hard copy of the book. Anyway, I just want to say that God loves you guys, and He's been showing me a lot of cool and interesting stuff that I want to make videos about, in the future. But today is a day of worship and a day of rest. So just get that rest, all of you guys. May you be blessed, may you be fruitful in all your ventures for today, and have a great day. Bye.